Good evening, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I'm very tired. And I just saw Saturday Night, the first of two movies I'm seeing in the next few days that have names based in TV shows that aired on NBC, or one presently aired on NBC, one is no longer on NBC for obvious reasons. It has nothing. The show has nothing to do with it. It's just the lead. But either way, Saturday Night, I find Saturday Night Live entertaining enough. And I think Jason Reitman telling this story, I think, is kind of what my big issue with this movie is. Because I've said it before about, like, biopics about people who are still alive and, you know, are actively involved in it. I feel like Lorne Michaels may have been somewhat involved in this. Because you would think that, like, with Lorne Michaels, like, before Saturday Night Live came about, you would think comedy just didn't exist and there was no one who, you know, no one was doing any kind of, you know, comedy at any point ever, and he kind of invented it. There's also this kind of thing where it's like what they were doing was super important, and look, I'm not discounting that. I am not a television historian, and I'm not 100% certain how much of that is accurate to reality. That said, I can promise you it wasn't quite as revolutionary as the movie thinks it is, and I also think that NBC was not putting $250,000 an episode into Saturday Night Live with the intent for it to fail, even though it was just a contract negotiation with what's his name, with Johnny Carson. That just logically does not make sense to me. It's like, I get that if you don't want to pay Carson, you find something to counter-program him with, but, like, to find something so totally different, and it's just, like, I understand that it was definitely part of the contract negotiation, it's just that whole thing just kind of falls flat for what the show is, what this movie is, and I think fundamentally what this is it is the story of how all these people came together against impossible odds to pull together the first episode of Saturday Night Live. And I think that I enjoy the real-time aspect of it, even though at points it's like, it ends up kind of being a timer for you, where it's like, okay, so we are, like, the movie's like an hour and a half long, so we are about 40 minutes in now, so we still got another, this is going on forever. And the thing is, too, there's so many fucking trailers, it was kind of obscene, and either way, it's like, I like that, and you get a lot of cool tracking shots and things like that come about as a result of this movie taking on this real-time version, where it takes place over the course of the actual runtime of the movie. And I think to that end, it's like, you get a sense of the frenetic pacing and all of that, and I think it really does land well. That said, I think there's a better movie in here somewhere. And I do like a lot of the cast. I love the guy who played, the guy who played Chevy Chase. He was great. The guy who played, J.K. Simmons comes in and plays Milton Berle. He's fantastic as Milton Berle. That was a fantastic choice. Just playing that arrogant prick of a human, like, that was, you know, brilliant casting. Willem Dafoe was the exec from NBC who's kind of doubting them, was also a good choice. That said, for what this movie is, and like I said, this movie is the story of them coming together and figuring out how to put together this show. For that to be what this whole thing is about, I think the issue that I have with this is we get too bogged down in the naysaying, this isn't going to work, this isn't, like, and that stuff would be interesting, this is a full story of everything that, that happened. Especially considering, like, the big issue with it is, like, it all comes together in the last 10 minutes, but there isn't a moment where it's like, oh, we have the epiphany, we're going on in 10 minutes, we have to get our shit together. Like, everyone just kind of starts synergizing in a way that they didn't before, and I don't think that it's quite, I don't want to say earned, because, again, I don't know how much of this is based 100% in reality, and how much of this is an exaggeration of what happened over the course of the week. But either way, it's like, when you get to the end of the movie and everyone's coming together to do the, to put together the last-ditch effort to get the show together, it's like, yeah, but, like, we spent all this time before that, and it doesn't quite equate out, and that was kind of my biggest, my biggest issue with that, was that you have this, this 2 hours that were hour and 40 minutes. The first hour and 20 is kind of like, oh, here's everyone fighting, and then it's like, how's it going to resolve? It just kind of does. It just kind of resolves, and that's really all we need to know about it. Like, don't think about it too hard, don't question it, it just kind of all works out for them, and look what ended up happening. And I think to an extent that kind of is a disservice, and I think that what would have been better is the story of the week leading up to it, because then the other issue with this is there's a lot of clunky dialogue, because, like, there's a lot of explanation into the relationship between, I think her name is Rosie, and Lauren. Like, that whole thing is given in this really weirdly situated expository conversation, and even the conversation that Lauren has with her early in the movie is kind of expository in a way that, like, I talk about, like, I've said it before, like, the first 5 episodes of a TV show has people talk in ways that they never would, especially TV shows that are meant for syndication and network shows, because any episode in that batch could be the first one someone sees. I think that's less so now that we live in an age of on-demand and streaming, but, like, go back and watch older TV shows. The first 5 episodes have people talk in ways to rehash what people don't know already, who are coming in fresh. Like, one of my favorite examples is on Frasier. In the second episode, he's trying to find a place to get comfortable and read, and he goes to the cafe, and he's sitting down at the cafe, and then Niles walks in, and he goes, "Oh, what fresh hell is this?" And Niles says, "Is that any way to treat your brother you haven't seen in however many years?" And it's like, that is, like, it's not the most clunky example, but it's still pretty clunky, and it's just designed to be like, oh, this is Niles, he's Frasier's brother, and this is their relationship. Like, and that is a little bit of where I am with a lot of this movie, where it's like, there's a lot of times where they're kind of a little clunky, and just kind of like, oh, we have an hour and a half to tell the story of how SNL came to be, and then, like the biggest example of, like, something not really being explained is, like, I'm not a huge fan of how Jim Henson's portrayed in this, although I think Nicholas Braun should play him in a biopic, like a real biopic about Jim Henson, because he looks the part, and he's got the mannerisms down, and the whole issue with him is no one's taking the Muppets seriously. Everyone's kind of like, oh, they're making the Muppets fuck. Oh, they're making they're not treating it seriously. They think it's a kid's thing. Why are they putting the Muppets on here? Like, what do we do? And the whole thing is kind of a little bit, they're treating him poorly. They're treating Jim Henson poorly. And the way this really comes down is the head writer is not giving scenes for the Muppets. He hasn't written anything for the Muppets to do. And that's a running issue through the entire thing. And then all of a sudden at the end, the Muppets he gets the pages for the Muppets. And it's like, but we never saw him really have that moment of like, oh, I should really do that. Like, the moment of unification at the end is not really, like, earned, I don't think. And then by the time it is kind of happening, it's like, well, we just need to, like, this feels like we need to expedite this for the plot to get us through to the end. This is to land the plane, because we know the show has to go on. But yeah, I enjoy the movie enough. It's just, I wish it were better. It's definitely my favorite thing that I've seen from Jason Reitman in recent years. Like, he does a good job. I just think we should have had someone who was a little removed from it. And, like, when we get to the end, like, and it's like a Lorne Michaels production, and I'm like, oh, well, yeah, obviously. I mean, like, short of him, like, actually getting a blowjob, like, this is the best blowjob they could have given to Lorne Michaels, and it's like the way I described it to Peter after I left, because one of the things I do every time I see a movie is I text him, like, oh, I saw this, so you don't have to. I texted him, there's that comic that went around a while back where it's like, you know, this comedian on stage, and he's like, my friend said every time I go to Taco Bell, I get diarrhea. And then he's like, and I'm like, well, diarrhea, why don't you just order a taquito? Like, thank you, I'll be here all week. And then it's like the comedian on stage, and this comedian in the podcast is like, well, we're basically the only ones speaking truth to power in this world. And it's like, that's kind of what this feels like in a lot of ways. Just an hour and 45-minute version of that comic, where it's like, this is important, is what they keep saying. And they don't really clarify why. And you don't get the title cards after the movie to be like, and this is how it happened, and this is where this person went off to, and this is where this person went off to. And it's like, yeah, I get that it's an important thing, and I get that it's but why? Like, you can't just say this is important and be like, okay, yes, it is. But, like, especially if you're doing, like, it's almost as if this movie is designed for people who were alive 50 years ago to go and watch this, to be nostalgic. Because they do nail the production design. The production design is fantastic. And I think that is kind of what it's designed for. It's designed for the nostalgia baiting of, oh, well, we're here to, you know, we're here to show you what it looked like back then. And that was kind of it. And it's a little strange in a way. Like, I appreciate it, and I understand what they're going for. It just doesn't quite click for me, and maybe it is just I'm not the right age for it. Maybe it is just, you know, I'm trying to think of a TV show equivalent that it's like if they did something like this about the production of the first episode, I may be like, oh, shit, that's really cool. And it's like, maybe Power Rangers? Like, I think that what they're missing is there was a joke that, and again, now we're on reference to Intuitive thing number 3. There was a meme that went around with a picture of Oppenheimer, or Cillian Murphy from Oppenheimer, saying like at the end of the movie, Lorne Michaels looking to the future and seeing that he created Jimmy Fallon, and it's like, I think to an extent you kind of need a moment like that. And I think that that's kind of what the movie was missing for me, is that you get this frenetic pace to get this show done right and get it out perfectly, and then it's like, all we see is the first sketch. And I would have preferred another 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, where it's just, we just go through the sketches of the first one, clip, 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 and we get to see Lorne react to it. And it's like, here's the thing that I've worked so hard on finally come to light. And then on top of that, too, because this is fiction, or a movie, I mean, fictionalized version of real events, you can do that. That moment of, like, him looking and seeing what comes down the line. And I feel like that would have impacted more. That would have had more work for it. It is unfortunate that it kind of just ends off the way it does. And I think that's kind of the big issue that I have with this movie, is that it is an abrupt, like, it just kind of ends. And I think that, like, we, like, to the point where it's like, you know, they do the cold open, and it's like live from New York. It's Saturday night. And then cut to credits. And I'm like, that that feels weird. Like, it's for a movie that has been so much about Lorne and his personal journey, like, and him trying to get this out, for us to not get to see him see the fruits of all that labor feels like a mistake. That said, where would I rate this movie? I would say this is a 4. I would not say rush out to see it. I would not say go and make this your priority 1 this weekend. But I would say it's worth seeing. I think it's entertaining enough. I think that it is, you know, there's fun to be had here. But I don't think it's worth rushing out to see it. I think there are enough weird, not inconsistencies, but weird just moments and lack of development that make it kind of fall flat. And it's like, I get what you're going for. Like, I can watch this and be like, I understand. You have the ingredients. To use the analogy that Lauren uses in the movie, like, I know the ingredients. I just don't know the amounts yet. That's kind of what this feels like, is they knew what they wanted, but they didn't get it in quite the same amounts. And it's like, I think you do need the, what's it called? You do need that moment at the end where it is going through where it goes from there. And you can use clips from the real show. I mean, you probably got to pay, and that's probably why they didn't do it. But like, you can go through the iconic skits of of SNL and just do it like a clip show, even if it is over silence, like the way they like. It's totally different, but like at the end of Wakanda Forever, there's that moment where Shuri has all the memories of T'Challa, and even if you do that moment that way, where it is just little clips of like things that come down the line that like people who know SNL and are gonna go see this movie will recognize, that would make the ending, I think, there's a lot of room to make the movie better in the ending. And we've talked about this before with trailers, this idea of the last shot that we see in a movie, in a trailer, is the thing that they want you to talk about on social media. It's the last impression is the most important thing, because that's the thing that I'm thinking about the most as I leave the theater. And everything before it can go perfectly fine. You fuck up the ending, that's all people remember. Look at How I Met Your Mother, look at Game of Thrones. If you fuck up the ending, it doesn't matter what you did before it. If you nail the ending, you can have a shitty movie with a nailed ending, and you'll forget about everything that came before because the ending is so good. And that's kind of what this, what this is that ending, I think, just falls completely flat. And it's the only time I can think of where I was like, we need more. Like, we need more, more to tell the story, but we need more to continue what's going on. Like, and just that, like, because that's the issue, is that it's like, without that, this feels like a drama, like a History Channel dramatization of it more than it does a movie. Where it's like a History Channel dramatization is not about It's not about showing off what the accurate, the dramatics of it. It is, let's show what happened, more or less. Let's give a closer to a textbook explanation of what happened. This feels a lot more like they are aiming for, like they're aiming for that. Because you need that emotional release at the end of the movie that you just don't get. Which is funny considering how it's the emotional equivalent of Blue Balls, which is a joke of earlier in the movie. When the standards and practices lady is reading through all the, is reading through all the jokes, and he's just like, what's this? And they're giving her these outlandish explanations for what it is. It's like, oh, what's clam diving? And it's like, oh, that's how they harvest clams in the ocean. They send someone down, and they go and get, oh, okay, all right. And it's like, and she goes there, she's like, I know what blue balls are. Like, that's, for a movie that has that joke, to miss the ending the way they do and leave the viewer with emotional blue balls. That's something that I think is a huge miss. But it's entertaining enough. I mean, Dylan O'Brien is great as Dan Aykroyd as well, and Rachel, I should really figure out how to pronounce her name, Sennott, who was in Bottoms. She has, I think, the most, like, emotion to work with in the movie. And I think she does enough with it. Like, I think she has the most emotion to deal with in the movie. Like, she's got, like, the guy playing Lorne Michaels does a great job, but he's basically playing this frantic guy the entire way through. I think she has the most room to actually act. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. Tomorrow we'll be doing the, what's it called? The franchise, is it called? No, the new show on HBO, the comedy from Armando Iannucci that I was going to do earlier in the week, but I forgot. We'll be doing that tomorrow morning. Or rather, we'll be doing that tomorrow, probably closer to tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow morning. We'll do it tomorrow. It'll be on tomorrow at some point. And then we'll be doing, tomorrow evening, The Apprentice, the movie about the life and times of former President Trump under the tutelage of Roy Cohn, starring Sebastian Stan. But until then, let me find my recording device, that way I can properly sign off. Until then, have a great rest of your week.